filthy swines, get in here, sit down, we're going to read some more news. You might like it. I have personal experiences with having premonitions. I know some people do, and it's easy to cast them as absurd and to throw them away as nothing but pareidolia, and maybe they are. Maybe some of these premonitions that I've had in the past were just finding patterns after the fact. But I have had significant moments of inspiration that have later proved to be really uncanny. I am biased towards agreeing with the possibility of seeing future events. I'm not sure time is linear. I think there's definitely a non-linear aspect to perception. I think when we dream, we enter a state that is outside of time, which sounds crazy. I'm a crazy pigman. Don't listen to me. Although you should listen to me for this next article because it sounds very interesting. On Popular Mechanics, an article written by Ashley Tysiak. Scientists tried to see if gut feelings could predict the future. What they found was haunting. Your hunches about the future aren't just in your head. For years, the strange phenomenon of precognition and unwavering gut feelings that something will happen in the future has puzzled scientists. The eerie concept may sound far-fetched, but many studies suggest there's statistical evidence to back up precognition existence. The eerie concept may sound far-fetched, but many studies suggest there's statistical evidence to back up precognition's existence. At the center of the research is a mid-1990s study by parapsychologist Dean Radin, PhD, that reshaped how we understand our ability to predict the future. While working at the University of Nevada, Radin, who had studied precognition for years, hypothesized that if consciousness transcended time, reactions to a stimulus would occur before the stimulus actually appeared. So he put that hypothesis to test, using an EEG machine to record brain activity of study participants. Hooked up to the EEG, the subjects reacted to prompts and images, including positive photos, like a sunrise, and negative pictures, such as a car crash. The EEG measured the subject's brain activity during the short 5-second span between when they received the prompt and when they saw the image. The results were astounding. When the subject predicted a positive image, they reacted very little, but they showed a spike in brain activity when they expected to see a negative image. Radin's findings were statistically significant, and since then researchers have replicated his study successfully nearly 36 times. His work proved influential enough that the CIA declassified its pre-sentiment research in 1995, and statisticians confirmed the effect was statistically reliable. Still, the questions remain about the science behind precognition. Numbers prove it exists, but why? What causes those psychic gut feelings? Is time truly linear? I would say no, but what do I know? While Radin's work provided a runway for substantiating precognition, the next step is finding evidence of its mechanism, and perhaps convincing others to let go of their fears of the unknown. Still mind-boggled by the future predicting capabilities of your consciousness, dive deeper into the mysteries of gut feelings and foresee the future by reading PopMech's feature of the complexity of precognition. Hang on, was that the totality of it? It was. I thought it was going to be a larger article, but it was just that. But we can actually go down these rabbit holes, which we will do. On our second article on Popular Mechanics, written by Elizabeth Rain, your consciousness can jump through time, meaning gut feelings are memories from the future, scientists say. Even the CIA has publicly released data on the psychic phenomenon. On an October night in 1989, a 4-year-old girl was shocked awake by a phone ringing and then a scream. She crept out of her bedroom and tiptoed barefoot along the hallway's clammy vinyl tile, stumbling upon her mother. He died in a car accident, she overheard Mom yelp, voice crackling. The girl's dark, shining eyes stared ahead blank. From the moment she'd thrown her arms around her father as he boarded his flight for that fateful business trip, she knew she would never see him again. That little girl was me, and the strange phenomenon I experienced that night was one of my earliest episodes of precognition. It was in the shadows of that hallway while I was awake in a way I'd never been before when I realized that the dread I'd swallowed during that final goodbye at the airport was more than my imagination. What kind of deranged child stands completely still and tearless after overhearing that her father had died thousands of miles away? Maybe the child who already knew she would never again make tents out of his flannel shirts or breathe in his Pierre Cardigan cologne. Though I had some fear of being seen as delusional, I shared this account over the phone with cognitive neuroscientist Julia Mossbridge. She listened intently. Afterwards, she launched into an impromptu interview, asking me questions as if I were one of her research subjects. Was that your earliest memory of precognition? Do you have frequent precognitive episodes? How can you tell one of these predictions is coming on? She then revealed that she had asked these questions because she could relate with her own experience with these strange, sometimes unnerving psychic gut feelings that led her to study them in the first place. Mossbridge says she was experienced with this phenomenon in two distinct ways since she was 7 years old. Though precognitive dreams during which she could gain knowledge about future events, and in waking episodes when she consciously felt a sense of knowing about a future event. These have helped Mossbridge foretell events of the future that she would have no other way of knowing. She says that these memories of a future could mean the notion of time might not be as linear as we imagine. It's not hard to understand precognition, Mossbridge said, a distinguished senior fellow in human potential at Florida Atlantic University's Center for Future of AI, Mind and Society. It's just hard to believe for people who haven't experienced it. We don't understand how time works. Even physicists are admitting they really don't know how it works. We're stuck on this idea that if you're truly scientific, you're going to think about time linearly. But is it really linear? A lot of the resistance to ideas about precognition and psychic phenomena is about fear. The fear of the unknown, or the fear of things that aren't the way they appear to be. Far from the carnival-style fortune tellers whose clairvoyance comes from glancing at their customers' social media accounts in a haze of incense, psychologists and neuroscientists have been trying to figure out what exactly is behind precognition, which is considered a type of extrasensory perception commonly called ESP. This unshakable fear that something will transpire in the future is long held among shamans and mystics, yet it remains unexplained in science. Precognition suggests that our consciousness might actually reach beyond the linear perception of time, according to parapsychologist Dean Radin, chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS, a non-profit based in Novato, California, dedicated to the study of unexplained phenomena. Radin has been probing consciousness for decades and is the author of several books on the topic, including Entangled Minds, the award-winning Supernormal and Real Magic. Radin and Mossbridge are ION's colleagues who have collaborated in the past. Both want to show the validity of precognition through statistics gathered from experiments, and they support the view of nonlinear time. Time is not how we experience it on the everyday level, says Radin, who is also an associate distinguished professor of integral and transpersonal psychology at the California Institute of Integral Studies. In quantum mechanics, time may not even be part of our physical reality. It's not that time doesn't exist, it just behaves in a much stranger way than how it is seen through the lens of a human experience. It suggests there's something probably associated with our consciousness that is different from our everyday experience of time. It's able to jump outside ordinary experience and receive information from the past or future. While he was at the University of Nevada in the mid-1990s, Radin created an experiment to prove it. His hypothesis was that if awareness transcends time, responses to an upcoming stimulus would appear before the stimulus itself appeared. Each participant was wired to an EEG machine and then told to press a button to display a random image on a computer screen. The image would either be positive, such as a sunrise, or negative, like a car crash, which we read earlier. Yes. The EEG would gauge brain activity within the 5 seconds between the prompt and the image. Predictions of seeing positive images elicited little to no emotion or change in brain activity. However, negative images caused increases in brain activity, spikes that would occur before the negative images were even shown. Since then, this type of presentment study has been successfully replicated about 4 dozen times, and in 1995 the CIA declassified its own precognition research after statisticians were hired to review its work and declared it statistically reliable. When statistics keep pointing to the existence of a phenomenon, that should be enough proof, says Mossbridge, who is also founder of the Mossbridge Institute, where she and her team of researchers delve into experimental psychology and sociopathology, cognitive neuroscience, AI, and the physics of time. She recalls a physicist doubting her experiment results because he believed in linear time. But Mossbridge's research has shown that most people are capable of some level of precognition. She thinks that more people would actually be aware of this ability, which is often looked at by society as delusional if it were considered more mainstream. Other cultures view precognition differently. Radin has studied Tibetan oracles who anticipated the future, for instance. He realized that clairvoyance, scientifically known as remote viewing, is the ability to see not only through time but also space. Long before news updates and weather forecasts, shamans who were able to perceive the future through time and space would be able to predict whether it would rain or where their enemies were advancing from. Some cultures use psychoactive substances such as psilocybin mushrooms or South American ayahuasca tea to awaken these second sight or third eye. Further precognition could be explained as a form of quantum entanglement, Radin says. Particles that are entangled share the same information and behave the same way even from far away, which is what Einstein called spooky action at a distance. Radin says this may explain why we can recall things that have not happened yet. Some people hypothesize that precognition is your brain entangled with itself in the future, because entanglement is not only things separated in space but also separated in time, he explains. If it can be entangled with itself in the future, in the present you'd be feeling something like a memory that's going to happen in the future. It's interesting that I always thought deja vu perhaps is your mind becoming dislocated in time and you're actually seeing things or anticipating things before they happen. And I remember having one deja vu experience sitting on a bench at college, and I heard a car driving up behind me, and I had this intense deja vu feeling, and I thought I'd catch this moment and try and predict what the car was, who was in it, what the car looked like. And sure enough, as it came round into my field of view, it was exactly as I expected it to be. I imagined an old grey Sierra with the windows down with exactly the person in it that I expected to see. So maybe that is pareidolia. Maybe I just got lucky. Maybe I subconsciously knew the sound of the engine of that car, but I don't think so. It was right in that moment of peak deja vu, which I tend to think is your consciousness has spread out to a much broader base of present. Still, skeptics point to other explanations for precognition and parapsychology in general. Unexplained mental phenomenon could merely translate to a self-fulfilling prophecy, a concept in social psychology that says our belief can influence our actions and fulfill the original predictions. Exactly, yeah. You may just be interpreting a dream you had and then waiting for that moment to occur and saying, that's it, and sticking that little pin in there. So, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it is pareidolia. To those who think the concept of precognition is questionable, it would seem as if I had some anxiety about my dad leaving, which turned into a lingering dread. The fatal accident was therefore a coincidence, and my prediction would be interpreted as a self-fulfilling prophecy. Mossbridge and Radin stand by their explanations of precognition. It's backed by statistics. Mossbridge claims it's just a matter of proving what the mechanism could be. There was a reason the 4-year-old version of myself had no tears welling up in her eyes when she found out her father died. When Mossbridge explained that consciousness might be able to travel through non-linear time, I began to realize that what I had experienced the night of my father's accident was possibly a quantum phenomenon, something that the mind of a preschooler would never have been able to process. But then nobody else of any age would appreciate that if that were true. Maybe I was in fact remembering something, except it was a memory of the future. Yeah, maybe you are not exclusively anchored to this linear moment. Maybe there are other yous in parallel times and information is shared between them. Maybe it's a bit like water on a river. It flows in one direction, but there are eddies where the water may flow backwards or flow sideways based on other events and occurrences. So perhaps the predominant direction is from the past into the future, but maybe our consciousness picks up on other directions of that flow. That's kind of where I'm at with this. But what do I know? I'm just a crazy pig man. That's it for now. Thank you for joining me wherever you are. Make sure you hit that like button. Pretty please.
Oink, oinkity, snort, snuffle, snuffle, squeak, oink, oink, wee, squeal, snort, snort, oinkity, squeak. Oink, 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 squeak, squeak, wee, 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 snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squeak, oink, 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 wee, 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 oh. Snort, snuffle, oink, squeal, squeal, wee. snort, snuffle, snuffle, squee, oinkity, oink, oink, snuffle, re-squeeze, snort, oink, squeal. Oink, oink, oinkity, squee, squee, re, snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinkity, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 re, squeal, squeal. Snort, shuffle, oink, re-squeal, re-snort, oinky, oinkity, oink, 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 snuffle, re-squeeze, snort, oink, squeal, oink, oink, oinkity, squeeze, squee, re, snuffle, snort, squeal, squeal, oinky, oink, snort, snort, squee, oink, 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 re, squeal, squeal, snort, snuffle, oink.